Welcome to Season 2 of Unplug with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier. And I am thrilled to kick off this new season with an incredible guest. It took a minute to get the season underway, but here we are, ready to inspire and empower once again. Our first guest is Pape, affectionately known as Santa Claus for the Nerds. Paul is a remarkable freelance designer who specializes in creating custom collectibles. But today, we're diving into his extraordinary story, shared with a complete stranger on Facebook. I love these connections, y'all. Our story connected with a bond over Star Wars, and then from there, it was magic. Paul's journey of creativity, passion, and the drive to do what he loves is a testament to being yourself and pursuing your dreams. He tells a story to inspire infinite growth. So listen in and don't miss this exciting start to Season 2. Welcome, Pape, to Unplug with Mel. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
It's been a good week, and I'm glad we get to sit down and record. I loved getting to meet you about a week. Oh, it was this week. It was this week we met.
It was this week.
And I can't wait for the audience to hear your story. You know, with Unplug with Mel, it's all about tell your story to inspire infinite growth. And I'll let you take it away with who you are, where you're from, and we'll get right into our questions. So, Paul, let them know who you are.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mel. I am Pape, and I am Santa Claus for Nerds. That's what I like to tell everybody. My story begins, and nobody wants to go clear to the beginning, but I was a child of the 70s and 80s, and back then we didn't have all the distraction of social media. And so growing up, I really loved school. That's really where my story begins. I threw myself into education. My mother loves to tell this story about how after I came home from first grade, I cried for 3 days when school was out until she enrolled me in summer school. And I did summer school I did year-round school for 10 years. So this was before it was all cool with the other kids. So I loved education. But what was interesting is it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I realized that the reason that I was going to school year-round is because I was trying to escape the home life. I had a very rough childhood growing up, a lot of mental and physical abuse stemming from family, and it was hard for me to fit in. I am the poster child for the middle child. I am definitely the forgotten middle one, and I also had aspirations that the rest of my family didn't. I'm the first one to graduate high school. I'm the first one to get a college degree, first one to get a master's degree. And so I was that nerdy kid who just didn't fit in. I wasn't, they would say I was book smart, but never street smart. So I spent a lot of time in school learning how to do pretty much anything and everything. I would like, instead of recess, going out and playing sports or anything like that, I'd lock myself away in the library. It would be dark and I'd be curled up with a book and I'd just be escaping to anywhere else that I could get to. I loved, fiction, nonfiction, anything I could get my hands on. When I was 10 years old, I was at my grandparents' house for 2 weeks and I read the World Book Encyclopedia. A lot of people don't know what that is, but back before we had Google, we just had books. Door-to-door salesmen would come by and they'd sell you the books. And I didn't know what else to do. I was in a small town, didn't know anybody there. So I just started with A and I went on through and I just read because I just loved to absorb the knowledge. And I think the reason that is because I wanted to know something that anybody could connect to. So that it was my way of being more human to other people. And so that love of learning followed me all the way through school. And in high school, I found theater. And I wanted to be an actor so bad. And what was funny is I wanted to be an actor, but I really wanted to get on stage. I wasn't so much about the plays, and I'm horrible about memorizing. Absolutely horrible.
I'm going to pause you right there. You're like telling people who I am. I was the nerd, stayed in school, but I don't know what it is about. We could read the entire encyclopedia, but if you asked what we memorized in there, I'd be like, until I read it like 100 times, I ain't quoting anything. I was just horrible. Songs, I need the speaker in front of me with the lyrics of the phone. I cannot remember
anything in memorization, but I love to read constantly. I didn't think I knew anyone else like that. So,
The nice
wow.
thing about it, I think, is that I find myself now, like if we fast forward to what I do for a living now, is I can sit down and I can meet with anybody who does anything. And once they start to talk, it's like I've in my mind pulled that encyclopedia volume out, flipped to the page, and I know exactly what they're talking about.
Oh,
And
that's bloody
so
brilliant. I
there's
love
a
that.
relatability in that I just absolutely love. But again, you put me on the spot and say, just recite. I'm like, whoop, nope, I need a prompt. Like, I am prompt person. So
We're chat GTP. We need a
right,
prompt. We
right.
can
Give
go
me
for it.
something to work with here.
Give me
Absolutely.
something. Well, what is it that you do right now?
So once I found theater, I'm just going to kind of go back. So, because how I got to where I'm at is very bizarre. So I got into theater as an actor, and I wasn't very good. I had great stage presence, but I wasn't good at the being other people thing. And so when I actually went to college to be an actor. Was told right off the bat, you'll never act. And I was working one day and I met a guy, and we'll talk about mentors in a bit, but he's a big one in my life. And he actually came up to me, and I was a little downtrodden, but I was a workaholic. And he said, hey, Paul, would you like to learn everything? And as a kid who loved to learn, I was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
And he literally showed me every aspect of the world of theater, from management to lighting to like anything that you could imagine. And then I took that knowledge and I ran with it, and I went into the world of design. And so then I went to graduate school for design at University of California, San Diego, and I spent 3 years there. I've got a fun story that we'll tell at the end that results from that. But um, my very last week there, I was they had a playhouse that was attached to it called the La Jolla Playhouse, and I was working in as part of the graduate program. You got to assist the designers who worked at this giant theater, and I was working with a man named John Arnone, who at the time had like either 4 or 6 shows on Broadway. And so as a scenic designer, that was like the apex. You're like, I'm working for the guy who is doing what everyone wants to do. And I asked him one day just on the side, I'm like, John, how is it being at the top? And he said, it's miserable. I'm like,
Mm.
what? He goes, yeah, I'm on the road 42 weeks out of the year. I pay for an apartment for my boyfriend to live in. I have a studio that I'm never in. I can't tie down any roots. He goes, it's awful. And I'm like, why are you waiting until I'm graduating to tell me this information? I'm like, I just spent my entire college career building to this point, and now you're saying it's not worth it. He goes, it's rewarding, but if you want more out of life, this is not for you. And it was at that moment I pivoted, and I was like, now what? And so then I turned back onto what I did, my knowledge, and I was like, okay, well, I started inventing things, and that went fairly well. I had a couple products out there. Pop out furniture was one of them, and I actually kind of rode that wave for a little while. It was laser die cut tiny furniture. And then my wife we moved to LA, and my wife hated the LA scene, and she's like, I want to go back home to where my family is, which is Nebraska. And I'm like, fine, let's go back there. So we went back to Nebraska, and I didn't know what to do. I was kind of floating around, and then my undergrad fired their scenic design professor, and they're like, we want you to just step in. I didn't interview or anything. They're like, you're just going to do it. I'm like, okay. And I was there for 3 years, and I loved the teaching. It was my first experience like really teaching. So I love being a professor. I hated every aspect of working at a university. Hated
Mm.
it. The bureaucracy was just atrocious. And so on my third year, going into my third year there, I had a friend of mine, because at that age, you're all college, you all think you're about the same age, we're all buddies. And he's like, hey, I'd really like you to make me a gift for my girlfriend for Valentine's Day, based off of the Nintendo Wii, the little Me figures that came out back then. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I made it for him. And this is before the internet was big, kids. This is, nobody had a blog, all that fun stuff. And he actually put it online, and it was picked up by a blog, and it was my first viral experience. And so I started getting requests, and I got so many requests. I was making more money doing that than I was actually working for the university. So after my third year, I asked my wife, I said, can I quit and just try and do this? And she's like, I'll give you 1 year. And in that first year, like 3 months into my first year, I had another viral sensation, and I earned like $60,000 in 3 weeks. And,
Wow.
and she's like, okay, you can do this. And that's 20 years ago. And so what I've done is I've taken all of my experiences in life, all the information that I have, and now what I do is I design and fabricate custom collectibles. which is basically where the Santa Claus for Nerds comes into play, because when people request something, and it's usually, my wife says I make memories tangible. So if there's something that you really want that you cannot find anywhere else, I can make that happen. And
Wow.
so
So
movie
you
props.
can
So the
make
stuff
me
that you
the
see behind
classic
you.
Mickey Mouse that I can never find anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I am a Mickey Mouse geek from 19 something.
When I visited, I've been to Disney. I don't know how many times. And when I was a child, I went there, and watching going through the Imagineers just was. I'm like, I want to do this, and I've had the opportunity to work for Disney since then.
So is the stuff in your backdrop stuff that you've made?
Yes, and this wall is actually 20 feet wide.
Holy moly, Paul! That's incredible.
It's a lot of different stuff. Like I can, I can see definitely pieces and parts that I've made. But I work for the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. So if you see something on the show that you're like, wow, that's a really weird prop, where did it came from? It's like probably from me.
Oh, I'm so gonna look at this stuff differently now. How cool!
And so
I'm geeking out right now.
And so that's what I do. I am Santa Claus for Nerds. But I also now teach this to people. So I've been doing this for 20 years, just making anything that people want. And it's really weird because I go from proposal ring boxes that are based on nerdy things to wedding cake toppers to I actually make funeral urns for people that are very personalized. It really doesn't matter. People want props from a movie or a television show that has been on the air for 40 years. And it's like, can you make it? Absolutely. And it's all these people, they just want this thing that is so personalized to them. It's custom. And so in reality, I guess you would say I'm an artist, but what I do is I do very personalized stuff. So I've done pieces for thousands of people all throughout the world. I've worked with lots of different companies. I've got stuff in museums, and it's all of these things that are just tangible memories, and that mean a lot to people on the individual scale. But now I teach people how to do this, and so I consult and I speak on stages, and I'm a big proponent of fostering creativity. I think that I love to say that human beings, creatives, are soul ambassadors to humanity.
Say that again.
Because when you are having a rough day, you want to come home and you unwind. What is the thing that you do? You turn on the television, you read a good book, you eat a great meal, you jump on the social media because you want to be recharged by all those creators out there. And that's exactly.
You said creators are the what?
Soul ambassadors to the human race.
I like that. Did you see? I'm writing it down, y'all. We're gonna recap on it. Soul ambassadors of the human race. Wow. I love creative thinking people's minds. I'm creating nonstop. That's how the podcast comes about. It's creating, even though it's just a podcast, we're creating. Absolutely. But I never considered myself a creator. This is cool. I'm liking this.
Well, see, I think creator, whenever I spell it, I always spell it with a capital C, because and I don't know, there's a lot of people out there. I'm not a very religious person, but I know a lot of people who are, but I know that they say, you are made in his image. He is the creator. Well, so are we. And if that is actually a true statement, we are made in his image, we are made to also create.
Oh, yes.
And being creative is the ability to use your imagination and to have original ideas. And we are the only species that we're aware of that can do that.
Correct.
And so to be creative, right.
Yes.
And so when I say creative, it doesn't mean an artist. You can be an artist, but I know computer programmers. I know people who are cooks. I know people all in all different fields, and they are creative because they have learned how to hone a skill that others can't. They've been able to it's that beautiful mind thing where you see all the math and stuff going around in their head, and they're applying
it makes sense to them.
Exactly. It is that thing that makes them passionate about life.
Wow. Well, in your journey, because that was a lot in the bio and stuff, but in your journey of becoming this creator, realizing that you were not such a great actor, and stuff, could you take me through a moment in your life and share some key moments and experiences that shaped who you are? What made you want to teach to help other creators come out of their shell? Could you, any setbacks, any things that you want to bring to the audience? Like, when we tell our bio, we try to put it like in a bow, all pretty, but I'm pretty sure it didn't just flew right into your lap. And here you are working for Nickelodeon and Disney and Jimmy Fallon and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of the bio thing, I wish bios were three-dimensional because the front page would be that beautiful, like, lacquered version of
Uh-huh.
it, but on the back end, I wanna see the bucket of poo.
Because it's true.
It is true, because honestly, I've never met a person who learned from being successful.
Mm,
You only learn from your errors.
mhm,
And I can prove this to you, to anybody who's listening right now. When you're laying in bed at night and your mind is racing and you're having that argument in your head or you're replaying that thing, it's not about a victory. It's that
mm-mm.
failure that you're trying to correct. It's you're having that
Yes.
argument. Well, if I would have said this, if I would have done this, if I would have, and that's because that is how we learn. It's how we process. So yeah,
It's also
absolutely. Yeah.
it's also in you're learning from what others are doing. So going back into your moment where you were escaping to school because of your childhood, you're learning to immerse yourself in education and whatever to escape because you don't want to repeat that same pattern that you're watching. So it's not like failures, it's just like other people's failures too. Like I don't want to be like that person. What are they doing? I don't want to do. I want to be different. And that goes into when you know better, you do better.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
so it's just amazing. Yeah, I like the three-dimensional cube thing. Pretty on the front, but there's a lot of in the back.
A lot of poo in the back. Yeah, I think what's really funny is I dove into education, and you want to talk about, the successes, but the failures that lead up to the successes. And I honestly think that jumping into education as much as I did as an escape was as much a failure as it was a
Mm,
success. And the reason is because I wanted to know so much. I wanted to be walking Google, but the problem is I gave up being a person to do it.
mhm,
And so, honestly, it's really funny because I have a mentor and a coach right now. And when I first met him, I'm like, yeah, I just want to do speaking and I want to coach and I want to do all this stuff as well because I got so much knowledge to give. And he's like, cool, but like, what's your story? Like, where are you from? And I'm like, my childhood was fine. He's like, nah, sit down and write it out. I'm like, nah, I don't have no. And oh my god, I cried for like 3 days going through all of this. But what I figured out was that I was going through my adulthood as a robot and
mhm,
everybody was connecting to me, but it was like they were connecting to a phone because I can't go anywhere, like literally anywhere, without someone asking me, how do you do something? Like I go to a chiropractor and he's like, awesome, I've got 3 questions. One's about electronics, one's about how to run my computer, and one's about things that I do in my house. I'm like, I just want an adjustment, you know. But no, okay, yeah. So and it's weird because I forgot how to really like connect with people. And
mhm,
when again, 20 years of being Santa Claus for all of these people. But what's really funny is I don't have a lot of friends.
mhm,
And the reason that's behind that is because I'm seen as a tool and not as a human. And
mhm,
so I started going through this process with my coach, and I've started tying the emotion back into. I actually have a tattoo that I got that says, once, I'm a robot and I'm a human, and it's only when I put the two together that I become real. And it's a
mm,
reminder to me that, if when you tie into it, and so now that I'm connecting those two parts together, like my relationship with my kids is better, relationship with my wife is better. When I am out with friends, we have more fun because there's more of a connection going on there. One of my
Well,
favorite things to do with my kids is to read to them. I read to
mhm,
my kids. My kids are 17 to 9, and I
mhm,
still read them for 30 to 40 minutes every night. But we're reading like novels, but I do all
mhm,
the voices and
mhm.
all of that stuff. And what's nice is with this connection now, there's so much more emoting that goes on in these books. And so everything that I used as an escape as a child is now coming back, and I'm able to give that back to my children to have these adventures so that their minds are racing. And so now when they read, they also do all the voices. And
That's
so it's
awesome.
passing that down, which I love.
Well, I taken that to acknowledge that, escaping to education or even just school or whatever, and isolating yourself from the human connection is a failure. We are designed, whether you're spiritual or not, to interconnect with other human beings. We're not self-sufficient without them, at all.
We're
you know,
social entities. Absolutely.
Yes. And on the flip side, though I didn't read the entire encyclopedias growing up, I read as much fiction, imaginary, like I would just immerse myself into that storyline where when a character died off or the book series ended, I was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it shocked me. And then of course, coming into the 90s and stuff where they're making these books that I grew up in into movies and stuff, I would binge. Now I'm horrible. I have to prioritize my binging for Netflix or Hulu because I will watch it from start to finish and everything goes on the back burner.
Oh, wow.
In this, reflecting in your journey and stuff, and we go over how hard it is to recognize the failures that launch us into success because we're ever learning and stuff. But in your journey, is there a particular moment where you sit back and going, that's a victory and I can't believe I did it?
Yes, absolutely. So this is the thing that I wanted to tie back to with my graduate program. So in 2002, I was asked to apply for an award. And I was like, sure, whatever, I'll apply for it. And I ended up winning. It was called the Princess Grace Award. And they give it to 6 people a year. It's pretty prestigious. It's actually given by, at the time, he was the Prince of Monaco. And so I went to a prince's ball. I was a guest of honor at a prince's ball. I got to bring my not yet wife, but my girlfriend at the time, who ends up being my wife, to a actual royal ball where I was a guest of honor. I got to be on stage. I was given an award from Fabergé. It was a design excellence award. So the president of Fabergé came out and gave me one of 12 Fabergé eggs as an award. And I it sits in my bathroom because I'm like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I'm like, but to have that kind of recognition for the work that you do, like you put in a lot of, they say that your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. And it's very true. And while I'm going through these processes, I can make whatever you want, but to me, that's just my life. But to other people, that's so fascinating. Like you're fascinated by the wall behind me. But to me, I'm like, oh, it's just where I work. And they're like, no, you don't understand. And so when I have clients come here, they look around and they're lost. They get lost in it. And it's fascinating to see that. But I'm just like, it's my basement. And so to have those accomplishments recognized is just one of those moments that I'm just like, it's amazing to me, like that what I've done is actually has value and is it is recognized. And so that's definitely one of them. But to have the ability to say I've given somebody a fairy tale, to my wife, it's like, we met royalty, we danced with them on a floor, we dressed in, tuxedos and evening gowns. And then I was, but not just because we were there, but because I was actually being recognized. That's kind of a neat, feather in the cap, I guess you can say.
Well, for people that struggled with human connection and can do a lot of hard work without any recognition and have humility and grace in it, we still want it. We might say we don't, but we still want it. I can see even applying for an award or being nominated from someone else into something. I remember the first time that someone put me in and I was like, how dare you? Why would you? Don't make me go to this event. And they're like, because you deserve it. And those words are like the ordinary to the extraordinary. Just hearing you deserve it. And I'm like, there's nothing I've ever done in my life that I actually deserve the life that I'm living, And it's
That's not true. It's what you think, but
it's what I'm saying. That's in my mind, And so it's so good for people to say, hey, you need to apply for this, or hey, we've nominated you, get over it, and it took me a long full circle to be like, you know what, that's why I made it one of the questions for those that are telling their story. Take a pause and look back at what you've done. And there's got to be a piece in there that you are super proud of and you deserve to be.
Sure.
And so I'm just picturing your wife and you going to a ball. I've never experienced that.
It was at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. It was just a big to-do.
Just a big to-do. Well, in this, between the setbacks and successes, and we have the listeners, joining in today and stuff, what would you say for someone that is, aspiring to tell their story or even write it out or create? What encouraging words would you give them or a philosophy that you might have to help them if they're at the brink of, I just need to quit, or why bother, or I failed again and I don't think I'm ever going to get it right? What would you tell them?
When I'm coaching people, this is what I like to let people know, especially artists, because they often come to me and they're like, I really, they ask me two questions. They're like, how do you do it, and what do I charge? I can cover the what do you charge thing. That's pretty easy. But how do you do it? And because I'm a big proponent of getting rid of the starving artist trope. I hate that trope. I think you can be successful as an artist, as a creative, that kind of thing. And so, but what a lot of people don't understand is that there are 8.1 billion people on this planet. And to be successful, you only need to impress 100 of them. And that's what I like to tell people. You need 100 fans, and they don't need to be the same fans for your entire life. You just need a rotation of 100 fans. And honestly, for the most part, 10 of them will be your super fans, and they'll take you as far as you need to go. You can live comfortably with 10 people out of 8.1 billion. So you don't need to appease everybody. Find your niche and embrace it. And the great thing about the internet is that we have a big world that's super tiny and connected. And so we can take anything, whatever you are, and as long as you put you into it, don't try to do the thing for someone else. Put yourself into it. And if you do, and you put that energy out there, you will find those 100 people. And it's really easy. Just put yourself out, and don't wage your success on monetary gains. I mean, we use it as a metric because we've got to eat, we've got to pay our bills, that kind of stuff. But if that's how you're going to measure success, you'll constantly be chasing that dragon. Find success in the joy you bring to others and the joy that you put out yourself.
That's great advice. I'm writing it down. When I started to think about doing a podcast right in the pandemic, you see several others started to do it too. And so I put it on the back burner.
Uh-oh.
I was like, they're going to do it better. They don't need to have me involved in this. And I'm a newbie. I'm an amateur. Like, I don't even know lighting and sound and whatever. So I was like, no, but it kept being stirred. And I had someone speak into my life going, do you not understand that you need to get on there and do this? Because it's not that you are bringing something completely different. It's that you are the one doing it. And we're signing up to support you. We want you behind the camera. We want to hear your voice on there. We want to see the guests you bring on there, and formulating even the questions. They're like, these are some great questions. Not everyone's asking these questions. Do it. And I literally just had to wing it, buy the mic that I could afford, the camera that I could afford, and launch it and let it be. And now I can sit back 8 months later and go, it's working. Like, who would have thought? And it's the same people listening in and the same people sharing it, but those are the supporters. But in that, no one's doing the exact same thing you're doing because you found your niche. And the biggest niche of it all is it's you. And you're different from everyone.
You can try to have mass market appeal, and it's fine, but the problem is eventually it becomes vapid.
Yes.
And because there's no soul behind it anymore. And I find that a lot of people who have found viral success, they're constantly chasing that success. They lost the reason that they became successful. And so if they just take a moment to just go back to who they genuinely were. And again, when I do my coaching, the very first question I ask is, why do you want to do it?
Yeah. If your why is to go viral, then
that's the wrong priority. Yeah.
I do this because I need to meet people like Paul.
Yeah. There you go.
We would have never met any other way. Our circles don't connect.
No.
I posted a thing on the World Wide Web social media, Facebook, and that I needed speakers. And here you are. And that's the way of the world. You said it best, with this big old world, but we're very connected if we choose to be. If we choose to get out there and meet strangers on the internet, and now we're not strangers anymore, Paul.
Nope.
And in that, how has recognizing the importance of mentors, you mentioned it a few times, and the other support, even like your wife and your kids, in your journey, how has it impacted you, and what highlights could you share with that?
Well, my very first mentor was a man named Robert Welk. We call him Bob Welk. And he's the one who asked me if I wanted to learn everything. And that was a huge pivot moment for me because he saw that I had that thirst for all the knowledge in there, and he didn't squander it. He and didn't take advantage of it. Instead, he nurtured it and let me do all the things that I wanted to. And he embraced the fact that I wanted to know. And that
Mm.
had a huge impact on me because I could see that my drive to know, to learn, and all of that wasn't wasted. When I was
Mm.
an undergrad, I made a lot of my own classes because I had finished all the other ones so quickly, and I still hadn't had the degree. And so he, really helped nurture that one. So he was probably my biggest mentor, um, that altered my life before I met my wife. Now, my
Mm.
wife is a costume designer. We actually
Mm.
met doing a show, and it was she's my best friend, but the best compliment I can give her is that we do not see each other as competition. She is utterly successful and doesn't need me. And she recognizes that I am successful and I don't need her, but we want to be in each other's lives. I'm all over the place and she is very grounded, and we are the perfect complements to each other. Um, this new journey that I'm on with the speaking and the coaching and all of that, it was a huge change for us. And she had my back, and it's been, you have your ups and downs with any kind of new journey, and to have her in my corner has just been, I mean, I can't even put into words how much that means to me. And then my last mentor that I want to talk about is actually my coach that I'm using right now. His name is Daryl Stinson. And as a robot human being, this man who is, I don't know, he's like 16 feet tall. He's a big football player, and a complete opposite of what I am.
Mhm.
But he is so in touch with who he is as a human being. And it's so eye opening to me that, like, meeting him like completely changed my trajectory. And it was at a moment where I was coming out of the pandemic, and I was done. I was like so emotionally and mentally drained, and I didn't understand why. And I had a breakdown during the pandemic because I think it was the first time that it occurred to me that people didn't have other people's best interest in mind. It was
Mhm.
eye-opening to me because I'm a unicorns and rainbow kind of guy. I think everybody is a good human being, which is why I like to use the Santa Claus analogy, because Santa Claus is good for everybody. But I also recognize, the pandemic was like, no, some people are just not in it for anyone else but themselves. And it hurt me a lot. And so I met Daryl, and it was so refreshing to know that you can go through life with the sole goal of helping others, however it is that your message connects with them. And
Mm.
so in the seasons of my life, I mean, I started with a guy who gave me all the information that I needed, and I found somebody who became an emotional rock, and then I found somebody who proved to me that humanity needs your voice. And I
Mhm.
think as a whole package, I mean, I couldn't have asked for three better people to enter my life at better times.
No, that's beautifully said. Beautifully said. And that helps you come out and tell your story,
Absolutely.
and I'm thankful that you get to do that. So now we get to have a little fun. You ready? This has
Absolutely.
been fun all the whole time, but now we get to switch it a little gears. In this, we said it even in your storytelling here about unplugging and reconnecting and stuff. So what does Paul do besides, well, maybe when you're not creating? What are you doing? Do you always just never stop creating, or do you really just like, okay, I've done enough tinkering and creating, I need to take a nap?
I play Beat Saber in VR, and I love it. It is such a
What is
guilty pleasure.
that?
So
I've never heard of it.
so in virtual reality, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I have
I've
my
never done it.
oh my goodness, you got to get into it. But so I have a headset and I put it on, and it is all immersive video games. And Beat Saber is, you have two lightsabers. They're playing your favorite music, and you use your lightsabers to destroy blocks as they're coming at you. So it's dancing and lightsaber. It's all so
So it's like
nerdy.
Guitar Hero, but with lightsabers
Yes,
in VR. Oh, I'm so down. I need, okay.
it is.
Santa, Mel needs VR.
It is, and it's so cheap to get into. I mean, I say so cheap. I mean, it's a few $100s these days is a lot of money, but at the same time, not that much money to really get into it. But it's such a nice workout. It's aerobic, but I'm listening to music and
I love
I get to be a
music.
Jedi. I mean, come on now.
Come on. I mean, we connected in our meet and greet by Star Wars. Come
There
on.
you go.
I love it. Anything else that you do besides that?
I read. I love to the person who wanted to be an actor as a child, it never left me. And memorization may not be my thing, but characterization and being in front of people, I love it. And so recording audiobooks is just one of my it
Oh,
because
I can so
I
see that.
love the stories and I love to put people behind it. And if you're an audiobook listener, you understand that the storyteller is 90% of the story. Doesn't even have to be
Yes.
good as long as the
Any
narrator
books
is
that I
good.
might know that you were the voice behind?
No, I'm not going to tell you. You got to go find them.
We gotta go find it. Mel's on a mission. I love it. You're nerd, so you might know Jim Butcher, right?
Absolutely. Dresden. My
Okay.
middle kid's name is Dresden.
I wish I hadn't had all my kids yet, but I'm done. But I've named my cat Mr.
Yes.
You know, but him picking James Marsden as his narrator for his books is bloody. I mean, I cannot put them down. You can't see on this side. Maybe you can see on the other side, but my whole wall is all nothing but the Jim Butcher books.
I have Toot Toot as a sculpture sitting on the very first that I made for a friend of mine, sitting on the very first Dresden Files book. Because
so sidetrack, y'all listening in. I'm a sponge and I connect with people all over the world because I'd rather make friends on the internet than actually leave my house and go somewhere. I was in a fan group of the Dresdens or whatever, and I said something in there, I guess that was profound enough, and Jim Butcher friend requested me on Facebook.
Oh,
I died. Literally. Like
smarter, not harder. Creativity is the basis of this. Necessity is the mother of all inventions. And the only reason that you find necessity is because you get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. So you want to find a new way to do something. You want to work smarter, not harder.
mm-hmm.
And it's so much more rewarding when you do. You work. The most valuable thing that we have in our life, it's not relationships, it's not money, it's not things, it's time. Your time is finite. It is the only thing that you have that is absolutely finite. You cannot recoup any more of it. And so working smarter, not harder, means that you are finding ways to do everything that you need to do in your life, but you're giving yourself the best payment you can, which is more of your time to do the things that you want to do. So work smarter, not harder. And the second thing that I always say is hopefully you guys learned something today, because I know I did. Never stop learning. We only know what we know. And I think it is really important that to connect with others, to understand where they're coming from, to innovate, to create, to invent, to wonder, to imagine, you need knowledge. And so never stop learning. The day you stop learning is the day you start dying.
Yes.
And I really truly think that education is I know I used it as an escape, but it has been one of the most useful tools. And I still to this day learn something every single day, even if it has nothing to do with what I'm doing. That is how we invent things. That's how we traveled the world, is how we went into space, is that we have this curiosity, and people become creative and they invent these new things, but they don't invent in a tunnel. What they do is they open up their mind to all these other things. And then when we're sleeping or when we're doing something with our primal brain, our mind is able to expand out and be creative and pull from these other resources that don't necessarily have to do with anything you're working on right now, but it helps put these puzzle pieces into place, and you have those aha moments. And it all comes back to opening your mind and finding knowledge. And it's not about going to school, people. I know I say knowledge and education. It's not about school. You can learn from anybody and anything. I learn from watching my children create on their own. I watch my cats play. I watch television. I read books, fiction or nonfiction. Like, I love to escape to a world because they have problems. I'm listening to a book right now It's like the 14th in a series called Night Lord series, and I love it because this man is watching civilization take flight because something went wrong in the book. But at one point, they're like, humanity isn't thriving. He's like, what do you mean? They're eating, they're farming, they're doing all this, but they're not thriving. They're surviving. And thriving means that we get to a point in our life where things are easy enough. We've created enough that we have that space in there for our minds to innovate, to become not animals, but to surpass it, become humans. And we use that knowledge to expand and create. And that's what enters us into the Iron Ages and the Space Ages. I mean, that is the necessities that we need. And so always keep on learning.
I loved our time here. We could just keep going, y'all. I'm sorry, but that's awesome. If someone wants to reach out to you, Paul, how would they reach out to you? Where's the best way for them to connect with you out here?
Well, I'm a dichotomy here. I'm in two different places at the same time. If you want to meet me, if you want to meet me, actual me, and you want me to speak and help create, or if you have questions about being a creator, you can find me at paulpape.it, because in the end, I want you to Paul Pape it. All right. So it's paulpape.it. That's where you're going to find it. See? Yeah, it makes you laugh. Yep. Now, if you want me to actually make something for you, if you want to have a little bit of Santa Claus in your life, you can find me at paulpapedesigns.com.
Awesome. I've enjoyed this. I think we're going to be ever-longing friends now. I don't know if anyone knows this, but when you meet a fellow nerd, and you just have your own little language.
Absolutely. Right.
You know, you be in a Walmart parking lot talking to someone, people walking by like, what the heck are they talking about?
They must have known each other for 30 years. No, I just met them. I saw their shirt. And I was like,
it was like, Jedi. We have So that'd be us, Paul and Mel. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on to Unplug with Mel. Be sure to check him out. I'll put down on the notes where to find you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope someone listening in has learned something today. I know I sure have.
That's right. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute